Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Well, check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something that will inspire you. Just go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. That's Deal to Heal Teas. Get some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. That's Deal to Heal Teas at dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Hi guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I'm your host, Earnest James. And on my podcast, my guests and I discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with their problems, heal from the pain, and to fulfill their purpose. So check out our podcast. We're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, or even on Audible. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel at Deal to Heal with E. James Podcast. Until then, see you soon. Welcome to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with E. James. We believe that the relationship between a dad and daughter is one of the most important relationships in a woman's life. Our mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by spreading the voices of girl dads to the world and give love and support to all of our dads and their daughters. Let's get to it. Let's tune in. Welcome to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, and I believe that the relationship between a dad and his daughter is one of the most important relationships in a young woman's life. And therefore, our mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by spreading the voices of girl dads to the world in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. If you haven't already, please listen, like, subscribe, and share our podcast on all of our social media pages and definitely on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast websites. Make sure you guys do that. Also, make sure you guys are checking us out on our new YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. We changed it from just one podcast because we are bringing you several podcasts at this point. And so we changed our channel to the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. So make sure you guys go there to check us out, where you can find the Girl Dad Discussions podcast there, where you can watch it and listen to it. And also you can find the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast is also there on that same channel. So again, that's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. Make sure you guys are going there in order to check us out. Also, our product of the week. As you guys know, we are a self-sustained podcast, and the way that we stay on the air is by bringing you amazing products for you to purchase in order for us to help pay our bills. So our product of the week is one of our inspirational teas. It's actually our motto tea for the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, which is our t-shirt that says, deal with the problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose, which is our motto for the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. It's actually my personal motto mission that I have, but you can check that out and to order your t-shirt at deal2healteas.com. That's deal with the number 2 healteas.com. Make sure you guys go check that out. That is our product of the week. But today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Mr. Phil. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I am good. I'm good. First of all, let me say thank you for being on. Because you
Absolutely.
could have been doing anything else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. And I want you to know
Absolutely.
that up front. So we're gonna jump right in it, right? We're gonna jump right into it. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience and tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so my name is Phil Ford. Right now, I am a fitness coach, and I'm also leading a social media account called Black Believer Bipolar, focused on the mental health of Black men. I was diagnosed early this year, actually, with major depression, anxiety, and PTSD, which was an underdiagnosis, and then that shifted over to bipolar disorder and ADHD. So I'm looking to just help men heal in that space. Also lead a nonprofit working with youth in the city, and I'm raising three beautiful daughters.
All right, all right. I love it. I love it. Definitely want to dive a little bit more into um uh those spaces around, mental health, which is number one, it's been a big thing anyway amongst men, but it's definitely a more open discussion that we're having now. And I've definitely been open to having the discussions on this podcast as well as the Deal to Heal podcast, because I know of how important it is with even myself dealing with my own depression and suicidal ideations. I did my recent TED talk, my first TED talk, talking about surviving suicidal ideation, which I did. And so definitely we can dive a little bit deeper into that
Yeah,
um, on this podcast. But definitely, we already talked about having you as a guest on the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. And so, to all my listeners, once you guys listen to this episode, make sure you go over to our YouTube channel and check out the Deal to Heal with E. James, Deal to Heal on that platform, because the other podcast might be up too. We might have already shot that episode already, and so you can find that episode there. So make sure you guys go check that out. But we are here on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. And so, first question I want to ask, and I always start off with, Phil, do me a favor. Tell me, what does it mean for you to be a girl dad personally?
yeah. So for me, being a girl dad, one, I just say it's probably one thing that saved my life. Without my daughters, my oldest in particular, she was one of the ones who saved my life. I was heading down the wrong path for living on the streets, not homeless, but I was living a street life. I
Mm-hmm.
had my daughter and decided to change my life because of her. So I think that with being a girl dad for me, it's been three predominant things, and that's being a priest, protector, and provider for her. A priest is a spiritual leader to her, protect her both physically, mentally, physically, emotionally. You're called to protect her as well as be a provider for her. So that's what it means for me to be a father, priest, protector, provider. Those are things that I've learned that you can't get by. And
Mm-hmm.
without any of those components there, it seems like there's just a disconnect as a whole. So I want to partner with my daughters holistically in every way that I possibly can.
I love it. I love it. And I like what you said about, and I've mentioned it several times on the podcast, even having a conversation with different dads, and some of them have that same sentiment, like you said, that their daughters changed their lives. And it's kind of that difference in having, a son than a daughter. Because I had a previous guest and he was saying how he lived a street life, and
Yeah.
he wanted to have a son. But one thing that he knew, and just like we know that when a man has a son, he kind of looks at him as like, that's my mini me, And so
Yeah.
some of the places and some of the things that he was involved in, he would have took his son into those spaces. But
Yeah.
when he had a daughter, he had a mindset of, I don't want to take my daughter into those spaces that he was, currently involved in. And so it ended up his daughter basically saving his life, because he began to change his ways and he stopped even being in those spaces. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? But had he had a son, you know what I mean? He could have just passed those same ideals and
Yeah.
circumstances down to his son. But our daughters have a way of changing us for the better,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I definitely agree with that sentiment of, like you said, your daughter saving your life, and that way alone, with a lot of us as fathers, makes a huge difference, because if we had sons, we probably would have, still been on the same
Yeah.
street life and the same things that we were doing at that time. But with the responsibilities, taking the responsibilities seriously as
Yeah.
being a girl dad, you're like, okay, we have to change. You know what I mean? We can't do the same thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. I don't think I would have. I don't think I would be here today if I had a son. I feel like growing up the way I did, I've seen a lot of men with their sons just hanging on the block with the rest of us.
Mhm.
But you don't see us bringing our daughters out there. We tend to have a different um, vibe when it comes to our girls. We're a little bit more protective of our girls. We raise them
Mhm.
differently than we do our boys, hands down. So I don't think I would have had a change at one bit without my daughter.
Cool, cool. So let's go back to the beginning. First of all, let me ask this, because I always forget to ask this too, because I know you have more than one daughter. So what is your daughter's names? Because I always forget, and we be having a conversation
Yeah,
like, yeah, our daughters, and never even actually acknowledge them.
yeah. So my oldest is 12. She'll be 13 in a few weeks, December 10th. Her name is Emily. My middle child, her name is Arabella. She turned 3 in August, and then my youngest is 10 months actually, and her name is Anais.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So when we're talking about your daughters, and I know you can give me the story on all three, or just one in particular. That how did you find out you were going to be a dad? Like, was
Oh
that
man,
something that you were planning, or was that just a
oh
surprise?
man. So yeah, my oldest was a surprise. The other two were not. They were with my wife, but my oldest was definitely a surprise. I was not expecting to be with my child's mom long term, my her mom long term, let alone at all. And so she kind of came as a major shock. I
Mm.
was not expecting it. She's actually coming in. Can you plug it up over there for me? Sorry about that. But yeah, so it when I found out I was about 18. Unplug that one. I'm sorry. Yeah. I was about 18 when I found out that, I was getting ready to have her. And that kind of put me into like a culture shock, really, because I knew two things for certain. So yeah, it was a complete culture shock when I was finding out that I was getting ready to have a child, because one, I had already didn't, I never believed that I was going to live to see the age of 18. Definitely didn't believe that I was going to see the age of 21. So I knew that there were some things that I definitely needed to change, and I didn't know how to change it. I was young, had never worked a job, only sold drugs and things of that nature. And earlier that year, I had been in 2 car accidents and almost lost my
Mm.
life to gun violence. So all of these things were piling up all at once. Finding out that I was about to have a daughter, well, a child in general, was like, man, what am I supposed to do with a kid? I probably won't even make it to be able to see her be born, let alone be in her life. So I started to make some changes then. And when she was born, I would always say that she was the first glimpse of light that I had ever seen in my life. Everything up until that point was just consumed with a lot of darkness, depression. I've been depressed since all I can remember. Most of my teenage years, I was depressed and suicidal, didn't even know it. When I had her, though, it was like, man, there was something to actually live for. There was something
Mhm.
to keep on pressing for. There was something to make a change for. And her first, few months or so were pretty challenging. There were complications with my daughter's mom and I, where she took her and disappeared for a brief time period. Since then, I got joint custody of her and everything of that nature. And we have a great relationship, parenting relationship now. But the beginning phases was like really rough. Like I was trying to be the right person for my daughter. So I was trying to be, I can't say perfect dad, but I was trying to be the right person for my daughter the best I knew I could. But they were always seeming to be like these barriers that I had to overcome, whether they were like her mom, whether we're trying to find a job, whatever it may be, there were always these barriers that I had to try to overcome. And so as that went on, I realized like that provider is a major component of being in your child's life, in your daughter's life. Like, and it was not just financial, but it was that. That's a major part
Mhm.
of it as well.
Yeah.
Is being there and providing her with your presence as much as you can. And so those were some things that I kind of picked up and learned, but that was one of the biggest moments of my life to this day. I don't think I've had any other moments like the first. The other two were planned out. You know, it was all. It's always a shock when you're about to have a baby, whether
Mhm.
you trying or not. Like getting the news is getting the news. It's always a
Right.
good thing. But in this case, with my oldest, she just happened to be the one person that changed my life. I probably would have committed suicide a long time ago had she not been born.
That's deep. That's deep. So, even with all your daughters, the fact that you had daughters is all three daughters is cool. Did you find out? Did you guys find out the sex of the babies or your daughters beforehand, or did you guys wait till they were born and in all the
Yeah.
cases?
Yeah, so all three, I knew what I was having beforehand. So the first one, like, of course, you know, I wanted a boy. That's what all guys want at first. And when I found out I was having a girl, like, I was super excited. My second, I was kind of like, all right, might be my boy. But when I found out it was a girl, like, I was still super happy. Come the third one, I was just like, all right, we gonna see. It is what it is at this point. I'm two for two now. It's three strikes you out, and lo and behold, you know, we got the news back. It was a girl, so it was just like, all right, well, I'm girl dad times three at this point in life.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So how was the experiences of, especially with your first daughter, and your other two daughters too, but having that your first child and actually bringing her home, what I mean, or actually holding her for the first time and really realizing that, okay, this is real now. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like this responsibility, this life, this new light, that you are able to see at that point.
yeah.
How was that experience like for the very first time and really realizing like, okay, I'm a dad now?
Yeah, so her mom they were a little ways out, so I wasn't there for the birth of my first child. So when I got there, she was already born. But I held her for about 2 to 3 days straight. I held her right on my chest for about 3 days straight. You know, she got off so she can eat, you know, and had to wipe her when she went to the bathroom and all that stuff like that. But the time that I just spent holding her, I just felt like she became a part of my own heart. She became a
Mhm.
part of me that I couldn't let go of. And so it really solidified the fact that like, oh no, like I am a dad. Like this person is here because of me, partly because of me. You know, it takes two people to mingle, of course, but like this person is alive and breathing because of me. Like I am her dad, like I am her father, like I am supposed to make life better for her. All of these things were happening inside of me mentally over the course of those 3 days that I held her. And I would say that was another life changing encounter for me. It's just being able to hold her for the first time, someone so small that you can kind of almost hold in your one hand is also super delicate. You know, I grew up, I'm like super hard, I'm rough, you know, fighting, all the stuff like that. But with this little person right here, it's like I had to be the most gentlest person ever. So I became this gentle giant.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love it. I love it. So, one of the things you said was when your daughter being born and really realizing, like the responsibility that was coming along with that, and how much she has changed you, right, as a person. One of the things that I always say is we're constantly pouring into our daughters, right? We're constantly teaching them things, raising them to be right. But along the way, there are some things that they teach us, right? There are some things that we learn as fathers that's like, okay, wow. So in your own experience, what is something that your daughters may have taught you at this point? Just something that in your experience as being a father that is like, all right, I'm learning too.
Yeah, so I would say all of my daughters have taught me the power of joy. Like I said, I spent most of my life depressed, and living with bipolar as well. So my mood goes from super happy, super elated to deep depression, and my girls had to all live through that. But the one thing that they all hold to is joy. My oldest and my middle, they are similar to how they acted at that age of 3 years old, which is just super joyful, super happy, and just are enjoying life. They're going through life with not a care in the world. And
Mhm.
I think that that's the one thing that they have teaching me. It's like just to have joy, because they're not concerned or worry about like where their next meal is going to come from, different things of that nature. And it reminds me of a Bible verse in Matthew chapter 6. It talks about, don't worry about food, what you're going to eat. Don't worry about clothes, what you're going to
Mhm.
wear, because the Heavenly Father is going to provide those things. And when I look at them, like I see that carelessness inside of them that leads to such joy. They don't have to worry about where their clothes are going to come from. They're not worried about the food, what they're going to eat, how they're going to eat. They just know that they're going to get hugs and kisses from daddy. They know that they're going to get some chocolate and some candy from daddy, who sneaks it to them when mommy's not looking. They know that, they're going to get tossed up and down with daddy. Like they just know what to expect, and they don't have anything else they're expecting except for all of their needs will be met. And I think that is what is really what I'm learning from them. It's just how to be in joy, how to be content in every season of life.
All right, all right. And so one of the things that I talk about in my own experience with my daughter was when she was younger, she had her first daddy daughter dance.
Mm,
And when she had it, I was like, all right, it happened to be during the week and I had to work. And I was like, all right, cool. So this is what I do. I miss this one, right? And then I'll catch the next one. As I mentioned earlier, my daughter's 21 and there never was the next one, right?
mm,
As 21, there's never was a next one. And so, just as a father, that's one of the things that I regret, right?
mm,
Which was not taking out that time, to be with her in that moment, and thinking that there would be another moment as such, and there wasn't. And so, in your experience thus far, what would be something that you look back now at your experiences with your daughter and say
mm.
this particular thing I could have done differently, you know what I mean? Or maybe something that I should have done that I didn't do, or something
Yeah,
that I did do that maybe I look back now, I was like, yeah, I could have handled that a little
yeah.
differently.
Yeah, so living with bipolar, like I said, I was diagnosed this year. So I'm 33 years old now. So that's a long time that I spent undiagnosed and then underdiagnosed for a brief period of time. So with my daughters, they specifically my oldest, she spent the most time with me with all of my mood disorders and whatnot. And so I would say what I regret is not actually going to therapy early
Mm.
on. I regret not getting help as soon as I started to really realize that I just wasn't normal. My life was just not normal. I had a bunch of trauma that I didn't deal with, that I just kind of buried and compartmentalized. And I spent a lot of time super depressed with my daughter. So there were just times when, I would always be there physically present with her, but I wasn't always emotionally present with her. I wasn't always mentally present with her. There were times when we would just sit in the house and we would watch movies and we would have a good time like that. And she's very good, really good about just having that genuine connection and wanting to be in my presence, in my space. But
Mhm.
I know that she had to live with a father who was super depressed most of her life, super on one polar end happy sometimes, but most of the time not happy, or just one monotone blah of a person almost.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
that's one thing that I truly, truly regret is not going to therapy and getting the help that I needed so that my daughter could have a healthy father mentally who was who was there, present, physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. I just didn't have it inside of me. And now, my middle child, she's had 3 years of it. My youngest won't remember any of it. My 3-year-old won't remember any of it either. And probably my 12-year-old won't remember it. But I have to live with the fact that there's a lot of moments in my life that I missed. I
Mhm.
missed it because I was bipolar. I was either manic or depressed. So there were some really good times that I know I missed because of my mental health issues and struggles.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit because I heard you mention about going to therapy or lack thereof, in the earlier times, and then I also heard you mention spirituality and even the scriptures, and definitely that has always sometimes me, especially me growing up in the church, that it was almost that battle of spirituality and therapy,
Yeah,
like one or the other, which I believe is both
yeah,
together. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
There's your natural side, there's your spiritual side, but they both sides make up you. You
Yeah,
know, and
absolutely.
so and how important do you think it is and how would you party impress on to the other fathers that may be listening the importance of therapy?
Yeah,
I haven't necessarily had therapy. I've been to bereavement counseling and bereavement support, dealing with my own depression after the loss of my mom. um, and definitely do have the desire and will at some time actually go to therapy for myself because I
yeah,
just think that we all need it, to be able to sit down and go and deal with the things that we don't necessarily talk about. But in your own words, what would be your experience of how important therapy is to us as men and
yeah,
as fathers? You know what I mean? And how would you really impress upon us the importance of being able
yeah.
to take that time for ourselves?
Yeah, so I think all men need to go to therapy. They need to spend some time sitting in front of an expert, some person to really take time to really unravel some of the pain, some of the societal norms and things that we have as men been shaped to believe.
Mhm.
But then with fathers, I think it's a non-negotiable. When you're pouring out to somebody from an empty cup, it's the most dangerous thing that you could possibly do, and that's where I was at with it. I was pouring into my children from an empty cup because I never had anyone being able to pour back into me what I was pouring out. And so some of that continues the cycle of depression. I found that when you're pouring out yourself empty, all you're doing is just bleeding your own self dry. So when I think about therapy, it's not just a matter of, oh, I'm going because I feel depressed or whatever it may be. I think sometimes going to therapy, it allows you to put yourself in a position where you are able to heal from things you may not even know that you need healing from. You
Mhm.
Because when it comes to anxiety, anxiety can look a lot of different ways. Anxiety can look like overworking. Anxiety can look like not sleeping enough, different things of that nature. And with men, we are societally taught that if we're not working, if we're not tired at the end of the day, we're not working hard enough, and that can bring
Mhm.
anxiety. We get to the end of the day and we feel like, man, I haven't done enough throughout the day. That's an issue of anxiety. Depression can look like, sometimes depression can also look like overworking. Depression can look like overeating or binge eating. And we don't notice some of those things. We could just think, oh man, like I just want a midnight snack to whatever it may be. And so there are a lot of different ways where mental health plays into our day-to-day roles. And a lot of times you hear men and we all say, like, yeah, I thought about going to therapy, but And we always have an excuse there. And I'm like, man, the same way we wouldn't have an excuse if we broke our ankle, we would not go to the doctor. We would go and we get that fixed up. It's the same way we need to treat our mental health. We need to treat our emotional health, our emotional wellness. Because what happens is that our daughters are looking to us for who they will be looking for in the world to one day marry or whatever it may be. They're going to be looking for people like us. So for me now, I have to realize that the the example that I set for my daughter was a man that was deeply depressed, that had very low emotional intelligence or EQ. And now I'm like, okay, I have to change. I have to do the extra work, deal with all the pain. I got to heal from it. And I got to walk in my full purpose now so that she can then look at me and say, okay, this is now who I should be looking for. Someone who is healing, not just healed. Because I think a lot of times we think that healing is a marker, is a place where we have to get to, when really, no, we have to constantly be in a position, constantly be in a place where we are healing. And that's a day to day, because again, grief can make us want to feel depressed, but the feelings of depression, the feelings of grief can be compartmentalized in two different places. And we all are dealing with a lot. And right now, we just need to be in a position where we are constantly in a place where we are healing. And I think that that's just the same thing. Therapy is just like taking a one-a-day multivitamin, something that we should be doing so that we can keep healing.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And then and just knowing that healing is a journey, not a destination. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? It's like it's not, like you said, it's not a place that we're going to. Like, hey, I'm
absolutely.
going to Chicago. Like,
Yeah,
no, like we're going past Chicago. You know what I mean? Like that, it's a trip that never ends. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? So we're constantly on that journey for healing. I want to touch on one thing that you said, because it's actually crazy that I seen I think I was on Instagram, and I seen this posted, a young man had posted about him going to therapy and having
mm,
a conversation with his therapist, and she gave him this insight. And so the insight was, like you said, pouring from an empty cup. And so he
mm,
was sharing with her that, he had poured into so many people and done so much and things of that nature, and he just got to the point where he was feeling, so empty because he had helped so many. And she said, well, who told you to do that? And
mm,
he mentioned the scripture about, overflowing and in your gift and helping others. And she was like, well, that's where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be in this space where you are receiving so much that your cup is overflowing, and those that you help is supposed to catch the overflow, not
yeah,
the empty. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, you're not supposed to empty yourself. You're supposed to uh fill yourself, should I say, so much so that it's overflowing, and then it's begin to
yep,
pour on everyone that you're connected to. And if you do that, then you'll never run empty.
yep,
But it's when you pour out everything that you have, but you're not bringing in, the resources, the therapy, the healing that you need personally, then that's when you get to the point where you
yeah,
start feeling, feeling empty. And so that was, just reminded me of what you said,
yeah,
that, yeah, that's where we are a lot of times. Like, we have to learn as
yeah,
fathers, definitely being the protector and the provider and all of those things, that while we're doing as much as we're
yeah,
doing, that we're also doing the work on ourselves for the
yeah,
continue this journey of healing, continue this journey
yeah,
of therapy, or whatever it is that we need personally, so that our cup never runs empty.
yeah,
And if we never run empty, then we'll always be able to pour into our daughters
yeah.
nonstop. So
And
yeah, yeah.
if we think about it, society, what it does is tell us to put all of our coins in the bucket of provision. So we put all of the work that we can into providing, and so then we're just empty in every other category. So
Mhm.
now we can't emotionally be present because all throughout the day we got a 9 hour, 8 hour work shift, working 70, 80 hours a week. We're working, 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 and then we only give our children the last little bit we have left, versus giving them all that we do have, pouring into them so that they can grow up to flourish, and letting the provision portion of it, though it is important, not take precedence over the fathering aspect of it. sometimes I think we just get those two mixed. We got to put our
Mhm.
parents in before the provision. And then that's not to say that provision is not important, but we
Definitely.
have to place into our minds that our children, our baby girls, are more important than provision.
Right, right. I love it. I love it. So on the flip side of that, right? So we kind of got into that by talking about something that you would do over, something that you regret, for lack of a better terms, as a father. So on the flip side of that, with all the accomplishments that you have made as a father and all of the changes and growth that you have made, as a father, what would be one of the things that, you know, one of the biggest accomplishments, that you feel that you've made thus far as being a dad?
Yeah, so one of the biggest accomplishments I would say is I wrote a book. So I wrote a children's book called Reach High, Reach for the Sky, and I wrote it based on with all of my children. Well, two of them in particular that were born at the time. So it's based on my oldest, and I'm just giving her the opportunity to dream big because I realized that there are a few things, right? In the book, it presents a family, a nuclear family, husband, wife, children. And I have my daughter Emily as the main character. And she's thinking about all of the things that she can be in life. So she's thinking about how she can be a great ballerina. She can also be a marine biologist. She can also be a neuroscientist, whatever it may be. But in the book, she is also looking up to her dad, which is me. I'm pursuing a PhD, and she's also like, man, I can pursue the highest level of not just academia, but any other thing that I choose to in life. I would say for me, that was one of my biggest accomplishments thus far in my life. A work of art that's always going to be there, and something that I can continue to build upon. And so I'm super like just grateful about being able to do that.
Mhm.
Eventually, my oldest and I, we're going to write another book. She started to do some of the research last year, and we have to kind of finish up some of the things on that one though. But we're going to write a second part to that book for her to kind of start to build up a fund for her and different things of that nature. So just being able to see the fruit of that one book and where it can lead us, but really it's just the legacy of the book. So even if it doesn't sell another copy, the legacy of that book for me is one of the greatest accomplishments that I think as a father I have at this current moment, because I get to look at it and think, man, this is exactly how I want my child to be. This is how I want my baby girl to be. And then my other children can read it as well, and they still are able to look up to their big sister.
I love it. I love it. So is the book available on Amazon?
Yeah, so it's available on Amazon. Reach High, Reach for the Sky.
Okay, okay. So to my listeners, I will make sure that I have the link to that in the description, so you guys will be able to go and to get the book. Definitely want you guys to be able to support, and I love the idea of I love the idea of writing it with your daughter. That's just amazing. Um, so yeah, make sure you guys look into check out the descriptions, the information in the description of the show. There's always some great information there. So make sure you guys go and check that out, so you can definitely support Phil with the book that he's written. So we're going to change it up just a little bit. Speaking of books, we're going to step into our second segment of the podcast, which is called the Getting to the Core segment. And so the Getting to the Core segment is built off of the book, The Core Four, which is the core four values that every daughter should get from her father, which is the book that I wrote, um, because I felt like that even as fathers, you know, with as much as we bring, right, when we break it down to the core, at its core values that we offer, there was four in particular values that we offer. And so to my audience, you guys can get your copy of the Core 4 ebook at ebooksbyejames.com. Again, that's ebooksbyejames.com. And the name of the book is The Core 4, which is the four core values that every daughter should get from her father. And so, Phil, real quickly, I'll go over those four values, those four core values, which is guidance, affirmation, love and affection, and protection. So, of those four, which one has been the most important to you that you wanted to instill in your daughters?
Yeah, so it's like a trick question. So I would say it's a mixture of guidance and love and affection. And I
Mhm.
say the two of those because I think our young girls need affection because when they don't get it from us, they do seek it elsewhere. And I've been
Mhm.
in education for a long time, and I've always seen young girls who are desiring healthy physical contact or connection in general. And so I think it's just super important to have that physical affection. Like my oldest, like she till this day will hug me or grab and want to wrap her arm around my arm and things of that nature. But then the guidance part is super crucial as well because our children, they look to us for guidance. And we have to be guiding them to the path of success, to whatever that looks like for them. But we have to be in some way guiding them, and if we're not guiding them, then they're just living their life and they're just walking aimlessly, which I don't think is wisdom. I don't think it's a good move for a father to not
Mhm.
play the guiding role in their children's lives. So I would just say it's a mixture of both of those two, the love, the affection, but also clear guidance. That means clear roads. Because sometimes I think girl dads, we get this bad a stigma that we're softies when it comes to our daughters, and that might be true. But
Mhm.
I think that at the same time, we still have to have some level of firmness, some level of being able to say no, to really authentically guide them. So our daughters don't just run over us, you
Right.
know, they do have us by the thumbs and the fingers, and of course, like that. But we're able to really guide them and say, like, hey, that's not a good idea. Hey, that's not the best decision to make right now. Let's try something different. We have to have that level of guidance and awareness to be able to do that.
All right, all right. I love it. I love it. Last but not least, um, the ebook is called The Core Four because it's the core four values that I thought was very important for me to instill not only in my daughter but that all daughters should have. But if there could be a fifth value that you could add, what would that fifth value be?
Yeah, I would say spiritual. I'm a spiritual guy. I do hold to my faith, and I think that that would be the one thing that I also instill into my children is an aspect of faith. Faith can do a lot of things for us. We can have faith in ourselves. We can have faith in our higher power. We can have faith that the bad times will then turn into good times. So I just think that having that reality of spirituality in there in the mix of the core four just adds just a different layer to it. And I think that we are all spiritual beings in and of itself. So we have to be operating holistically, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. I think when we add all of those together, we can see healthy, whole individuals who learn and are okay within themselves.
All right, all right, all right. So, Phil, I want to say first of all, thank you so much for coming on to sharing your story, your expertise. As being a girl dad, I want you to have the last word. I want you to leave us with a word of advice, inspiration, however you feel. Something that can be left. Even more than what you already given us, but something that can be left with the fathers. And also, I want you to leave your social media handles and things of that nature where we can follow you and support you. So I'll give you a chance to think about that. To my listeners, thank you guys for tuning in to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Make sure that you guys are go and check me out at my main website, which is dealhealfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org, because my mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. So make sure you guys go there and check out my main website. You can even see everything that I have going on with the podcast, with the books, and even there's a link to book me to come out to be a speaker or to facilitate a workshop for you at your school or your organization. Again, that's at my website at dealhealfulfill.org. Make sure you guys go and check me out there. Also, we talk about the four core ebook, but there's also other ebooks that I have written that is available at ebooksbyejames.com. Again, that's ebooksbyejames.com. There are several ebooks there to choose from, even one that talks about starting your own podcast. I know you guys are listening to the podcast, but if you ever thought about starting your own podcast, you can get your copy of the ebook Start Your Podcast Now, as well as the Core Four or the From Males to Men, or my ebook Forgiving Me, the 4 Steps to Self Forgiveness. All of those are available at ebooksbyejames.com. So make sure you guys go there to check those out. And we talked about our product of the week, which was one of our inspirational teas. But you can find more of our inspirational teas at our website, deal2healteas.com. That's deal with the number 2, healteas.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. So make sure you guys go to deal, the number 2, healteas.com in order to get your inspirational tea t-shirt. And also we have our podcast merch, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it. So you can get a t-shirt with the Girl Dad Discussions podcast logo on it, or the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast logo on it as well. Last but not least, over the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops every quarter of the year. Actually, not every quarter. We actually have them bi-monthly now. So every other month, we have a free virtual workshop where we talk about everything regarding forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others. What does it mean to forgive? Who is forgiveness for? Just really going deep, diving deep into the conversation of forgiveness. It's absolutely free, but the information is priceless. So make sure you guys go to forgivenessmission.com in order to register for our next free virtual workshop, or you can go to Eventbrite and register for the forgiveness workshop held by the Forgiveness Mission. Again, it is absolutely free. Whenever you're listening to this, either one just passed or there's one coming up. So make sure you go to forgivenessmission.com to sign up for our next free virtual workshop about forgiveness. Phil, once again, I want to say thank you for coming out. Thank you for sharing your story and your expertise as a girl dad. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, man, I think the forgiveness aspect is real. Last thing I would definitely say is, fathers, forgive yourself. You will make mistakes. You're not perfect, and it's okay to not be okay. I think oftentimes as men, especially as fathers, we feel this pressure to have everything under control. And one thing my therapist told me is that it was called hyper self-reliance. And when you rely on yourself that much, it's damaging, it's dangerous. So be okay with not being okay. Learn how to forgive yourself. Know that you're going to make mistakes, and your children, your baby girls, are not going to look at you differently because you made mistakes. So be okay with saying sorry. Be okay with being not okay. Yeah, you can follow me on Black Believer Bipolar. I'm giving tips, advice to help men break the stigma of mental health, and really begin the process of healing and getting therapy, and taking the next steps so that they can be the best men, that they can be the best husbands, that they can be the best fathers that they can be. And you can be the same. You just got to take the opportunities that are in front of you, get the help that you need, forgive yourself, and keep on healing.
All right, all right. Can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, Thank you once again for tuning in to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, where our mission is to blast the voices of girl dads throughout the world in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter. Thank you guys once again for tuning in. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with E. James. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our podcast on all your podcast listening platforms. Also, don't keep it to yourself, but share it with someone else that the Girl Dad Discussions podcast is on the air. Until next time, be blessed.